Okay, Captain Marvel. Marvel Studios' first crack at a female-led superhero movie. And who better to do it with than Carol Danvers herself, right? I mean, she is literally carrying the company brand, so if the studio was gonna put out a character done right, it's gonna be her, right? Interview after interview, she is just being built up as the most powerful superhero the MCU has ever seen. What could possibly go wrong?
I do not need a 40-year-old white dude to tell me what didn't work for him about A Wrinkle in Time. It wasn't made for him.
Okay, a lot could go wrong. There's a lot to talk about there, definitely, but other people have already milked that cow dry, and there's probably nothing I can say about that topic that hasn't been said already. So instead, I choose to focus on the movie. Carol Danvers, the strongest, baddest, and most progressive superhero you have ever met. I mean, she has it all. She's strong, she can fly, she shoots lasers out of her fists,
That's a photon blast.
she can withstand the vacuum of space. In fact, she is so stupidly overpowered in her own movie that the main antagonist, if you can even call him that, is not even a match for her. Nobody is a match for her. In their big climactic face-off, the guy has his entire team with him fighting with just her, and it's still not enough. Not even close. There is a point in this movie where she literally just postures and pumps her fists in front of an alien armada and they just leave. She pumps her fists and they leave. They do not want anything to do with her. And the leader of this armada is Ronan the Accuser. That's right, the big bad from Guardians 1 is in this film and he is scared shitless of Captain Marvel. The guy who we see shove an Infinity Stone in his hammer, then pick a fight with Thanos the Mad Titan. That guy is tucking tail and running for the hills. That's how overpowered they made her in this movie. Captain Marvel is... it's fine. It's fine. I know there have been a lot of controversy surrounding this film, and I tried my very best to stay away from all of that because I wanted to watch the film without any bias floating around in my head. And it kinda worked. Captain Marvel is not a perfect film, far from it, but it's also not as bad as some people are making it out to be. There are a few great moments in there, and aside from a number of flaws, it's an okay film. I had a good time watching it. But having said that, there is a fundamental flaw in this movie, and sadly, it's Captain Marvel herself. Remember the trailer for Captain Marvel? The marketing was focused on her, and what makes her a hero. They even did a really cool play on words, showing the word her centered on frame, and then the rest of the statement fades in after. Find out what makes her a hero. That was really clever, and I came into the theater expecting to find out what did make her a hero. But after watching the film, I don't think the filmmakers had a clue either, because they made Captain Marvel as generic of a superhero as possible. Like, literally, I have no idea what the message is. What does Carol Danvers stand for? What makes her a superhero? And to that point, what makes anyone a superhero? Why do we believe in Iron Man? Why do we root for Captain America? Why do we cheer when Thor arrives in the Battle of Wakanda? There are a lot of reasons why we like or dislike these characters. Some people like Iron Man because of the cool armor, others like Cap because of the great fight scenes, others like Thor because he's basically a god. But what makes them superheroes? It's simple really, it's this little thing that was missing in the Captain Marvel movie. Its character. You see, from the time that I sat down at the theater to the time that I left, I never got a sense that I knew Carol Danvers. I mean, I knew that she was strong, I knew she could fly, I knew her power set basically,
Higher, further, faster, baby.
but I never knew who she was as a person. The whole movie she was trying to piece together her memory, and it was a great premise for a film, because as Carol figured out more and more about who she was, so too did the audience along with her. We were on the same journey, so to speak. But after everything that happened, all she really found out was that she was human. There was nothing that made her stand out. I mean, you could literally swap out the character of Carol Danvers for Maria Rambeau and it wouldn't have made a difference. It would still have been the same movie, except the return of her memories would have been more meaningful because it would have meant reuniting with her daughter. Because in the entirety of this movie, there was nothing that shows that Carol Danvers was anything special, other than the fact that she just happens to be the one involved in that crash. If Rambo was the one there, I don't think it would have changed anything. And that's exactly the problem I have with this character. Who is she? What does she stand for? Why should we care about Captain Marvel? I mean, yeah, she's powerful, the most powerful superhero the MCU has ever seen. She could probably stand toe-to-toe with Thor even. But is that it? She's just strong? Because that's not enough. Take Steve Rogers, for example, the other captain in the MCU. Captain America is the moral compass of the Avengers. You can always count on him to stand for what is right, no matter what. Typical hero stuff, right? Do the right thing, etc., etc. The same can be said for almost every other superhero. So why make a movie about Captain America? What makes him special? Who is Steve Rogers? Well, let's take a look.
You just don't know when to give up, do you?
I want this all day.
Steve Rogers is a man that hates bullies. He's been bullied all his life. He didn't become a hero after being chosen for the Super Soldier program. He was chosen because he was a hero. And even when he got his powers, he's still just a man fighting against bullies, no matter where they come from.
I don't want to kill anyone. I don't like bullies. I don't care where they're from.
You see him get beat up, knocked down, and thrown around, facing threats that are better suited for superheroes stronger than him, like Iron Man or Thor. But he still keeps getting back up, keeps moving forward, and he never looks back. And then he wins. Not because he's strong, or not because he has a vibranium shield, but because he has the courage to never give up. That's what makes him a superhero. You can take away his shield, take away his team, make him a fugitive and an outlaw. He is still Captain America. Because it's not about the vibranium shield that literally breaks the laws of physics. It's not about the super soldier serum either. It's not about leading the Avengers, it's about the man. Steve Rogers is Captain America. Not because he can kick ass or jump out from a jet with no chute or go toe to toe with the Mad Titan himself, but because he never gives up. He always stands for what is right, no matter the consequences. That's Steve Rogers. That's Captain America. He is defined not by his powers, but by who he is despite them. Captain Marvel seems to be the opposite. She is defined solely by her overwhelming power. There seems to be nothing more to this character other than she can shoot photon blasts from her fists. In the first Avengers movie, Steve Rogers says to Tony Stark,
Big man in a suit of armor. Take that off, what are you?
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
I love that line. Granted, it's not answered in that movie, not seriously anyway. But then Iron Man 3 comes along and it's all about taking Tony Stark out of his element. You see, Iron Man is not the suit. Captain America is not the shield. Thor is not the hammer. It's the man. They are superheroes not because they have powers. They are superheroes because of what they are worth when you take those powers away. The Captain Marvel movie had every opportunity to show us what makes Carol Danvers a hero, but instead they chose to focus on Captain Marvel and how she is the strongest superhero the MCU has ever seen. I mean, we get it, she's strong. It makes for a great spectacle, but other than that, higher, further, faster does not a good superhero make. The whole concept of the Skrulls were interesting too. They were the perfect antagonist for a movie showcasing the most powerful superhero the MCU has ever seen, because they presented a threat that you couldn't match with just good old-fashioned brute force. They are shapeshifters, being able to copy the appearance of different life forms down to the cellular level. So basically it's a perfect copy. Cool premise, right? I mean, it means that you can never really be sure of who to trust. Take your eye off someone for 5 minutes and for all you know, he might have already been replaced with a Skrull. It's the perfect match for a superhero that can't be matched. But then they turn out to be the good guys all along, which is such a waste because there was so much potential there. The movie could have been about responsibility and temperance, about staying your hand, about Captain Marvel learning that her power is a double-edged sword, that in the same way that it can be used to save people, it can also just as easily hurt them, even with the best intentions. In fact, one of the very first scenes we see her in sets this up pretty nicely. We see her in training, and she's being taught temperance, how to use her wits and to avoid relying on her powers too much. At the start, it was funny. She was in training, she couldn't win, but she didn't want to lose, so she cheats and uses her photon blasts anyway. It's a pretty good introduction for our heroine. It informs the audience of her flaws and foreshadows the kind of conflict she will be facing as the movie progressed. But then, nothing really ever comes of it. It's never resolved. And all of the conflicts she is faced with for the entirety of the film she overcomes by either punching or blasting her way through. She never meets a wall that she can't break by balling up her fist and making a scowl. She is never shown to use her powers in any meaningful way. There's nothing wrong with a superhero that is so overpowered it's impossible to match her. It's been done before. In fact, the absolute epitome of a superhero, the most iconic one and the one that everybody knows, is overpowered too. Superman. Yep, good old Supes can do everything Captain Marvel can do and more. He's faster, stronger, has heat vision, X-ray vision, ice breath, can fly so freakingly fast that it reverses the flow of fucking time. If that isn't overpowered, I don't know what is. So why is that okay for Supes, but when Captain Marvel does it, I have to make a video and address it? Well, there is one key difference in the way these two characters are handled, and it's called Lex Luthor. If you know Superman, then you probably know about his bald menace of an arch-enemy, Lex. Not the quirky, creepy movie Lex, comic book Lex. You see, unlike Superman, Lex doesn't have any powers. He is just a smart and cunning human being. The pairing of Superman and Lex Luthor works because they are stark opposites of each other. Lex is a villain that Superman cannot overcome by relying on his powers, because Lex is powerless. He's just a normal guy, so Supes can't just beat him to a pulp and save the day. Lex will die. He has to be smarter than that, because Lex never comes at Superman head on. He's too smart for that. He always has a plan, either by rendering him powerless, kidnapping his loved ones, or running for president. Yes, that's something that really actually happened. Lex became an untouchable threat to Superman because he had the whole nation believing he was a changed man and elected him to office. If you were Superman, how do you fight something like that? That's exactly why it works. Lex is the perfect antagonist to go against Superman because he challenges him in a meaningful way, taking him out of his comfort zone. So when Superman eventually succeeds, we cheer, because beating Lex Luthor is proof that Superman is not the cape and the powers and the Kryptonian heritage. It's the man. Character is important. That's why I had high hopes for the Skrulls in this movie, because I already knew Captain Marvel was going to be powerful. But facing the Skrulls meant that power wasn't gonna be the determining factor. But then they swapped the Kree for the Skrulls as the bad guys, and in the end, power was the determining factor. And this is the problem. Power cannot be the determining factor. It has to be character. Because why should we care about Carol Danvers if the only thing that makes her Captain Marvel is the powers? Take Iron Man's armor, for example. If you take that armor and gave it to someone else, would you call that guy Iron Man? Is that guy a superhero suddenly? Of course not. Tony Stark is Iron Man, and Iron Man is Tony Stark. Having the cool armor does not make Tony Stark Iron Man. Tony Stark makes Tony Stark Iron Man. It's the guy, the things that he's been through, the sacrifices that he's made, his values, his motivations, his willingness to jump into the abyss in the hopes of saving the world. That's what makes him Iron Man. No matter the suit, no matter the money, no matter the fame or the publicity, Tony Stark is the superhero, not Iron Man. At the end of the film, after single-handedly defeating a Kree armada, Jude Law is the only one left. He and Captain Marvel have a face-off and it's played for laughs. Jude Law taunts her and he challenges her to an honest fight. No weapons, no powers, just him and her, once and for all. It's a great callback to the start of the film and the perfect opportunity for a big payoff. It's the last scene and it's probably what the audience is gonna leave with. But the fight never happens. Just like in the start of the movie, she just blasts him away, then stands over him with the words, "I don't have to prove anything to you." Personally, I hate this scene. I hate it. Because she does have something to prove. She has yet to show anything special other than just blasting people away. This is the perfect moment to show that she is more than just her power set. Everything that is wrong with this film is perfectly captured in the decision to play this scene out in this way. It basically means that after everything that she's been through, the Carol Danvers that we meet in the first act of the movie is the exact same one that we are left with at the end of the film. She did not grow at all. What is the message that you're trying to convey here? Women empowerment? Is that the message? That if you can shoot lasers from your fists, you're powerful? Because other than that, she's really not all that. The trailers made a big deal out of finding out what makes her a hero, and when you watch the movie, the answer seems to be her powers. Because there really is no defining traits to Carol Danvers. Who is she? What does she stand for? What makes her a superhero? What makes her different than every other spandex-wearing, badass, crime-fighting superhero in the Marvel Universe? What is the story that needs to be told here? If you line up all the female characters in the Marvel roster with superpowers, how does Captain Marvel stand out? She doesn't seem to have any motivation for why she does what she does. Iron Man is an arms contractor who finds out that his weapons, the ones that he builds to protect his country, was actually being used to harm innocents and spread terror. He has a change of heart and feels responsible for this, thus he becomes Iron Man, bearing the full weight of all his creations and inventions henceforth. Captain America is an ordinary guy who has been bullied all his life, but instead of having hatred for those who bullied him, he is actually motivated to stop the bullies. In the middle of the World War II, Steve Rogers is hell-bent on signing up for the army because, in his own words,
The factory, Bucky. Bucky, come on. There are men laying down their lives. I got no right to do any less than them. That's what you don't understand.
he is a man who always does the right thing simply because it is the right thing to do, and eventually becomes Captain America because of this. Thor is a spoiled brat who is banished from his home and loses everything he holds dear. He has to rediscover what makes a good king and a good person, and eventually earns the right to hold Mjolnir and become Thor, the God of Thunder, once more. Spider-Man is an average guy with flaws and mistakes who was accidentally bit by a radioactive spider, giving him spider-like powers. But after this, he indirectly caused the death of his uncle, teaching him the lesson that with great power comes great responsibility, and then becoming the webhead we know and love. These are superheroes. They are flawed, they struggle, they make mistakes, and they fall down. But they each have something that they are holding on to, a reason to keep fighting, to keep going, that no matter how rough the storm, how big the gap, and how powerful the villain, they have to win. That reason defines who these characters are. It might be the serum, or the hammer, or a radioactive spider that made them super, but it's not what makes them heroes. And Captain Marvel is fine. She's strong, she eventually does the right thing, she can fly in space and save the day. And yes, she's super, and pretty heroic at that. But it's gonna take a little bit more to be called a superhero.